Hey y'all, it's your girl Mialana back with another story time. I'm starting to think that this is like my story time uniform because I wore it the last time. But moving on, I am here to tell us, I'm going to talk about my first day as a teacher. I gave you guys a bit of that story when I talked about the time a kid called me a bitch. But I'm going to talk about my first day of school. So I was a December grad, so I was fortunate to start teaching in January instead of teaching at the beginning of the year. But those of you that are teachers, you know that January is just like the beginning of the school year. Kids have been home for a few weeks, so you have to kind of set your expectations. So I'm giddy, I'm excited. This is a side note. I ended up getting a job at the school that I did host, which is like an after school care here in Hillsborough County. I did host that. And so the unique situation, I guess I can call it a unique situation, was that the assistant principal, she absolutely hated me. Like, she did not like me because when I was a host worker, I defied her in her eyes. Because I spoke up for myself and she just didn't like it. So I got the job and she didn't know, and so she was livid. So she didn't like me out the job. And so later on, I'm going to tell you another story about my last day of school there and how this all ties in together. So anyway, I'm excited. I'm an Elk teacher. I'm ready to go and change the world with my little students. And I'm just like gung-ho. So I arrive at the school. I told y'all I was looking fly. Had a new little haircut. My hair was short. I had on my nice stockings, my heels. I was ready to go. So I get to the school and I find out that I'm not in my own classroom. So I'm kind of like bummed. My feelings are hurt. I am actually in a room with another teacher because my students were placed in another classroom because the teacher that they had ended up quitting. So anyhow, they thought that it was best for me to just stay in the classroom with this teacher until my students got adjusted to being with me, and then we could move into our own room, hopefully. So I wasn't really happy about that, but hey, it is what it is. So I get into the classroom. My kids are in there with the other children. This teacher's sitting at the desk, or what we call the kidney table. She's sitting there. She looks like she's zoned out. The bell hasn't even rung, and sister looked like she done. But anyway, I kind of don't know what to do. So my parent comes in. Like I told you, she introduced herself. She takes me down to what might be our classroom, and I look, and it is just like a bare canvas. So anyone that knows me knows that I love decorating. So this was my time to shine. Like I was ready. I was giddy. I'm like, okay, I don't know when we're moving in here, but when we move in, I want to make sure my kids have a beautiful environment. So I start decorating the classroom. The other teacher tells me that she'll give me some time to kind of go off and do what I'm doing. And so I'm in there and I get this bright idea that I want to hang things from the ceiling. I'm that teacher. Like, I'm going to transform this environment. So I couldn't reach the ceiling because I'm not short, but I'm not tall either. So I don't have a ladder. So I look over and I see this desk. And I get this bright idea that I can just use the desk. Like, why not? So I climb my big butt up on the desk. And I still can't reach the ceiling. This is a fairly new school. Actually, it was a new school because this was the first year that it was open. So the ceilings were kind of high. So I'm just in my mind, a teeny bit away from the ceiling. So if I jump up, I should be able to get this paper clip inside the ceiling. This is what I'm thinking. So I'm not going to tell y'all that my mama has always said that I was book smart, but not so much street smart. And this day, I think I proved her point. So you guys, I move the desk, get off the desk, kind of look up. And I'm like, yeah, if I jump up just a little bit, I'll be able to, put this paper clip. I wouldn't have to go and, find a custodian and get a ladder and all those other things. So I get up on this desk. Now take my heels off. But remember, I still have on these nylon stockings. And I jump up. And when I come back down, I slide body goes this way, desk goes this way, body falls. That gravity thing takes into effect. So anyway, your girl on the floor. So I look around, my leg is killing me. And I just make sure nobody sees me. That's all that matters to me. So at this point, I'm like, oh man, I've been gone for a while. I need to get down here back to my kids just to kind of check in on them, make sure that they're doing okay. But my leg is throbbing. So I look down at my leg, y'all. I got this big old hole in my stockings and these interstate lines going up and down and from left to right. It was just a mess. My stockings were a mess. So I'm like, hey, they don't think I done been through the battle by the time I get down there, but I need to go and check on my kids. So I go down to check on my kids, and I couldn't have stepped my whole body into the classroom, and then there's a tornado drill. So great. Huge hole in my stockings, leg throbbing, and now we have a tornado drill. So this is my first day. So I don't know drills. I don't know the procedures. Like, these are some things that you don't really go over in college. They don't talk about the practicalities of teaching. And this is a practicality. Like, this is probably just like 101 practicality of teaching. And so, and I can't remember back to my internship to remember if we had fire drills and tornado drills and all of those things. And we probably did, but I just don't remember. So anyhow, I'm looking like, okay, what do we do? So the teacher's like, oh, we have to go out into the hallway, and we have to duck and cover in the hallway along the wall. So I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. So I have babies. I have munchkins. My kids are anywhere from 3 years old to kindergarten. I have the kindergarten babies too. And so they're looking at me like, who are you, lady, coming to get us, to take us into this hallway? I'm like, come on, you guys, let's go. So we're ushering them out the door. One of my kids looks down and he's like, what's wrong with your socks? You got a hole. So I'm like, okay, I'm ushering you out. You ain't gotta let everybody know I have a hole in my stockings, friend. Shh, be quiet. So we get out there, we do our drill. My kids do a wonderful job, they do well. And at that point, we're told that we're meeting inside of the cafeteria or the multi-purpose room for a school-wide meeting. So I'm going into this multi-purpose room. I got these kids, and I have this huge hole in my stocking. Although no one said anything about it, I'm pretty sure everyone saw the hole. But they probably was just like, who is she? And what is going on with her, with that hole in her stockings? Like, did she really show up like this? Because it was still fairly early in the morning. So make it through that. Go back to the classroom, and I get back in the classroom. And at this point, I had been in my own classroom trying to decorate and get things together. So at this point, it's time for me to kind of like watch my own kids and do something for my kids. Y'all, I look over to the kidney table and your girl's asleep. So I'm like, okay, so are the kids watching themselves, or like what's going on? Because this chick is asleep. Now, I didn't tell y'all at the beginning, my first job was Elk. These are students that are identified as being developmentally delayed in some way. It could be speech, it could be behavior, it could be cognitively, it could be many different things. But legally, you cannot give a child a quote unquote label or an exceptionality until they are 6. So in the school system, what we do is we can start giving kids assistance at age 3. And so those students enter into what we call the Elk Program. Now, my program was specifically for students that had behavior disorders, but like I told you, these kids had not been diagnosed yet. Now, some of them had been diagnosed with some heavier things like schizophrenia and things like that, but within the school system, they had not been diagnosed. So my Elk program was therapeutic, meaning these students, they received like counseling. I was supposed to work with them on different emotional techniques to kind of get their behavior under control. Like, that was part of my job. And so Mind you, now anybody trained me for this. I just came out of college and applied for a job. I knew that I wanted to work with kids with behavior disorders when I was younger. That was the thing that I wanted to do, was work with those type of children. But I hadn't really had any extensive training. So anyhow, I said that to say all of the kids that were in this program were, at that time, they called them EBD students. They were EBD students, or students with emotional behavior disorders. So you're asleep, right? You catching a nap, some Z's, and you're in a classroom full of children with behavior disorders, and not just your typical behavior disorders, but these children are considered therapeutic. They could be schizophrenic. They could be, I can't even think of any others, but they were along that line, right? And you sleep with I can't even say first year teacher, with the first day teacher in your class, and we got 2 paras. Now our paras, if y'all watching this, y'all are absolutely dynamic. One of them, you know how I feel about you. You held it down in that classroom. You were awesome. She would float between the 2 rooms, but she could take care of that room and any other room all by herself. She didn't need our help. And I always told her, I was like, girl, you got a gift. Why are you in here being a para? Most paras that I have encountered along this teaching journey, they have been better than the teacher. And I just have to call a spade. And I always encourage them to go off and get their degree in teaching. So anyhow, we're in here and she sleep. So the kids are like all over the place. Now I have a belief that I can teach a person content. I can give you content, but I can't teach you passion. I can't teach you the gift of teaching, and I can't teach you how to the theatrics of teaching. Like, those are things that I think that people are born with. Either you are born into this teaching profession or not. And she was one that was not. And actually, she was one that thought like, okay, this is easy. I'm going to come into education and just kind of float. She had come from corporate America, and she just felt like teaching was easy. You know, corporate America at the time wasn't booming the way she needed it to boom. So she had come into this profession. And so you know how people feel about teachers, and then let alone how they feel about special education. And so she was in a special education class. Generally, you know, administration does not come down to the into the special ed classrooms unless there's an issue. So she was kind of like, she was good. I guess, you know, she was fine. I can do what I want to do. She actually would run her business. Like, that's another story time, but she ran a Mary Kay business, and that chick would do her Mary Kay work on the clock. These babies really didn't get any direction, any teaching all day long for the most part. So anyhow, we're in there, sister sleep at the table. So here I come, like, okay, y'all, come on, let's come together. You know, it's time to teach, because that's what I went to school for, to teach people's children, right? Those kids wanted no parts of my teaching. None whatsoever. They were used to sisters sleep at the table. This our time. We getting ready to turn up. We're going to do what we want to do. And you talking about teaching? Girl, if you don't go on somewhere. And I think, too, they thought that probably I was just like another para, because I had not been there before. I just popped up this one day, hey, here's another teacher. So anyhow, needless to say, it was pretty difficult trying to get them to come in and want to engage in the learning, but they did. And I was so grateful. I had to pull back from my kindergarten days of being in kindergarten myself, and we had the letter people. You guys remember the letter people. I missed the M, munchy mouth, and you remember that. So anyway, I remember my first lesson was D. We were working on D, and I had made this big dolphin, and I had all of these pictures that they were going to do the letter name association with, and we were going to work through that, and it worked out, and the kids really enjoyed it until after lunch. It was a whole nother deal. Well, I appreciate you guys coming in for my story time. I will be back with more story times. I have to start thinking back to some of those juicy stories that we had in elementary. But I will see you guys the next time.